This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Howdy everybody, it is Party Loaded for Thursday this time, the 6th of December. Welcome to the show. This of course is your weekly hit of everything great in the world of video games. We got I was going to say the Fab 5 here tonight, but that's a queer eye for the straight guy thing, isn't it? We can't really use that. What about the Fast 5? No, that's a movie franchise. How about the Fun 5? Can we go with that? Fun 5?
How about Party Loaded?
Party Loaded's good too. Fine, kill my fun. That's Jam. I'm Luke. We got Christian here. We got Matt here. We got Adrian here. We're going quick and fast tonight because we've got a ton of stuff to get through.
The 5 Nights of Freddy.
Oh no,
that's terrible.
I like it.
No. Terrible. Oh shit. Anyway, so the gang is all here. We got lots to talk about. Heading straight into what is traditionally a slightly quieter time of the year, but this year I call bullshit on that because holy moly, this week. My God. It's a little bit nuts. I'm looking at the notes of what stuff we've got to cover tonight, and man, strap yourselves in, buddy. This is going to be one of those things.
It's worth pointing out that the date today is the 6th of December.
Yeah, that's scary.
Yeah.
Yep.
That happened
What even
quick.
happened?
Has everyone done their Christmas shopping? Are you
Shut
all
up.
set?
No.
Well, Jam, you and I have already covered this. We just bought our presents for ourselves. That was all we had to worry about.
I mean,
right?
yeah, I've spent
Yeah.
a lot of money on me.
Yep.
But I have more to buy for others.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I haven't bought anything for myself yet.
You haven't?
No.
No.
Gasp.
That's a
better get
lie.
on
You
that.
bought something for yourself over the Black Friday weekend sales, and you're still
Oh, that's
playing it.
fair. But that was November. That doesn't count.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, tell us more about Hitman anyway, because you've got some fun stories for this week. So what have you been up to?
Hitman 2 is awesome. I don't know. Like, they haven't changed much about the formula between Hitman 1 and Hitman 2, and I say that having just played Hitman 1 start to finish before playing 2, but holy shit, it's good.
Yeah, did they
There's
need to,
so
though?
much
Did they
good
really
stuff.
need to?
So you'd say
They didn't need to.
You'd say it's a hit, man.
Yeah, it's a hit.
The part of Luke tonight will be played by Christian.
I'll just point out, Christian, I approve. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Terrible.
But over the weekend, I killed Sean Bean. Again.
Haven't we all? Haven't we all killed Sean Bean?
And then what did you do on Hitman?
You know, there was actually people being banned on Twitter for saying, Sean Bean's dead, I killed him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that mission is so fun. And it's a great reference to the actor. Like, Mark Faber is just a total asshole that refuses to die despite seemingly being killed multiple times.
Yeah.
And
He even
he's
talks about how he's going to fake his death during the mission. Like, he's planning it out. It's awesome.
He's like Neg Universe Sean Bean, right? Like total asshole and never dies versus really nice guy that dies all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's like Sean Bean as if his acting career were all canonical events that actually happened to him.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had a ton of fun with that mission. I popped my head in on a couple of occasions. I've been playing on the Master Assassiner difficulty. So when I got in there and I started doing it, I was utterly terrified because I've never played an elusive target mission before in any of the Hitman games. And then I found out that it's not actually as difficult as a Master Assassin thing, except for the fact that you have that hard failure set of things that can happen. So if you get killed, or if the target starts running and you don't kill them before they manage to escape, you basically fail the mission. You can never retry.
Yeah.
But having done a whole bunch of Master Assassin stuff now, and basically played start to finish a whole bunch of missions with only a single save along the way, I feel like I've gotten pretty good at not worrying too much about restarting missions and such. So it was a ton of fun.
I got in there. Too. Like, you know your way around that map.
Yeah.
By then, so yeah.
All the things that you can kill the characters on that map with are there to kill Mark Faber with. So I never actually killed my target when I actually played that level normally. I never actually killed him with the auto-targeting robot. And then when I was going through the level and just kind of exploring and finding all the different bits and pieces that I could potentially use to murder my target, which is my favorite part of Hitman, I might add. Well, actually, no, it's my favorite part of Hitman 2 is the information gathering. I didn't actually enjoy it that much in 1, but in 2 I've been enjoying it way more. I think it's because it's a more amusing game, but I stumbled across a picture of Mark Faber, and I'm like, this is perfect. And I went over to the machine while he was in the room, and I'm dressed up as a scientist. I just go over to the robot and just casually put his photo in there. And he turns around, and just with this incredible delivery as the robot is beeping and taking target, Sean Bean goes, well, shit, and then just gets suddenly riddled with bullets.
That's awesome.
And it was really good. But I'm calling it right now. Mark Faber's not dead, and he's totally coming back as an elusive target.
Now, I hope that you're right. However, this is the thing. All of the Hitman 1 elusive targets, unless I'm mistaken, and I'm pretty sure I'm not, never returned. So you still only got one shot at all of them. They didn't redo them. So
I reckon he's coming back, but not in that mission. It would be canonically after you've assassinated him the first time.
Okay. Well,
because he's the Undying, right?
I really hope that you're right, because I fucked the mission up.
Really?
So, yeah.
I saw that you were streaming. I didn't see it.
I'll tell the story quickly now. So I actually hopped on stream to do it the other night because I thought that'd be a bit of fun. And I went in, I cased the place out. I knew the level pretty well. And during the story video that you get as an intro to that mission, it gives you an idea for 3 of the main avenues of approach. One is to sort of going through the cleaner's backdoor sort of entries and to try and take him out by getting into the building that way. Another one is by getting over to the other side of the racetrack on the level and finding like a sniper's nest and taking him out when he's up against a particular window. But the third method, and this is the one that I chose, was actually meeting an informant in the lobby and actually getting introduced during a meeting and actually trying to find a way to take him out while he's in the R&D area, which sounds like that's kind of where you went as well. Now, when I went in there, I was in that room full of all the scientists, all the tech stuff, and I was trying to find a way to clear the room because there was a couple of guards in there and a bunch of scientists, and there was just too many people. Like, I was going to be able to take out Mark Faber, but not get away with it. And in the end, I managed to get rid of the guards, but the scientists were still in there. So I was just like, all right, well, fuck it. I'm just going to go for it. I picked up a container of rocket fuel and basically threw it at his head and blew his head off. So, and all the scientists were crapping themselves, wondering what had gone wrong, as I was quickly ducking out of the room, changing into a security guard's outfit and dumping the security guard that I'd taken out earlier into a chest. And then I was just able to blend in with the rest of the staff in the building and nobody was any of the wiser. So that went perfectly. And then as I was leaving the building, I stopped at the front entrance and I thought to myself, I really want to get a good score on this mission, so I should take out the security camera footage of me as I was entering the building. So I went back in and I tried to find the security room, and as I was heading towards there's like an aquarium under the building, which is part of the sort of museum area. I had to take out one of the security guards that was getting a little suspicious down there as I walked past. So I knock him out, and as I'm dragging his body into a side room, there's one part of the room that was unprotected that I didn't have my vision to, and I dragged him straight across and didn't realize there was a security guard over the other side of the room just looking right at me. And I was just like, hi, guy. Fuck.
Greedy.
Yeah, I got greedy, and I got up and just got involved in this massive gunfight and just got taken down. So, yeah.
So I didn't actually go in with the informant. I went down into the parking garage and I took my entry through the security outpost that's in the parking garage. Because you take out one of the security guards there's this little electrical panel that you can go and tamper with, and a security guard comes out of the security room to fix it. I just basically beat him over the head with a fire extinguisher, dragged his body into the security room while there's 2 other security guards standing outside, totally oblivious.
Yeah.
Get changed into security guard uniform, take out the other security guard that's sleeping in the room nearby, and then from there you can just basically walk inside, find the elevator shaft, climb all the way to the top floor, get into one of the higher ranking security guard uniforms.
Yeah.
Go take out a scientist, get into a scientist uniform, tweak the robot, set it to blow people's heads off, go and get changed back into the higher tier security guard, take out the video surveillance, and then leave.
Yeah.
And
See,
it was just
that last bit is
totally
what I
easy.
should have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the moment you get the high tier guard uniform, the rest of that level is so easy. Like there's very few people around that will actually give a shit about you. Like they'll be like, hang on a second, this guy's not supposed to be here. It's only a couple of other security guards on that level that care.
Yeah. Or as it turns out, if they see you dragging your body across the floor. So, you know.
Yeah, there is also that. But other than killing Mark Favor, I had to post up a tweet thread because the best level of the game I've played so far is Mumbai, because that level has another assassin on it called the Kashmirian you run into. Mm-hmm. And you can go and just get dressed up as him, and that unlocks a different couple of pathways. But the more funny way that you can deal with that mission is it turns out the Kashmirian's targets are your targets.
Oh.
And so you basically just help the Kashmirian by setting up events so that his targets will pass by his sniper scope and that he will kill them for you, totally oblivious that he's basically doing your work for you.
Nice.
And then he goes to meet the final target of the mission, who is he's left as this shady figure and who actually changes every playthrough. Oh. So you can't just go and find the same guy the next time you go in. It's always a changing, different character. Nice. So you get him to go and call up this other character, and he's basically all cocky and is all like, you know, yes, I want to organize a meeting because I've killed your friends and everything, and I consider this to be a job interview. And so you just follow the Kashmirian after that point to where he's going to have the meeting, knock him out, get dressed up as him, and then go to the meeting, just take all the credit.
That's amazing. I love it.
It's so funny. Like that mission, I know it's probably spoilery, but the way you get through it is the best part of it. Yeah. And I can't recommend enough that you go back and you replay that level to take that route through it, because it is so funny. I think in the mission stories it's called painting by numbers or something like that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, you totally do that mission story. It's so it's unexpected and fun, and just the most hilarious thing about it was just sitting there as Agent 47 just playing games on my tablet while the Kashmirian did all the killing for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really good.
Oh man. So yeah, Hitman 2, solid game. Big fan. It's continuing to be fun. So now you played something else fun this week, which is kind of in vogue at the moment because it's popped up a couple of times at the Game Awards. It was one of the category nominations, wasn't it? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of my old friends that I used to work at EB Games with, he actually gifted me a couple of weeks back Return of the Obra Dinn. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't had any time to put in some hours with it yet. And I was telling him, look, I'm really sorry. I promise I'm actually going to put some time in with this and talk about it. But I did spend some time today, like a couple of hours actually playing it. The game was already gorgeous in my mind because it's such a unique art style. It actually has different graphical settings that are like Macintosh and IBM, like old school computer monitor rendering methods. And you basically are running around, and the Obra Dinn's a ship. And your character is basically there to investigate what happened to it, because it was supposed to return months ago, and now it's just returned with none of its crew alive on it. It's a ghost ship, basically. And you're there with this magical stopwatch that can actually interact with the bodies and turn back time to view how they died. And you start piecing together what exactly happened on the ship. It's basically a 1900s murder mystery. It's really neat.
Is it a bit like the detective vision in like the Batman Arkham games, how you can kind of like see holograms of what's gone on and sort of rewind and fast forward through time to see how they actually went down?
Sort of. Like it's all in the same graphical style. Like you are basically seeing it like it was just happening now, but whenever you turn back time to see how somebody died, you get some voiceover dialogue between characters that are talking about something. And then the point at which somebody dies, you finally get to see the scene. It's kind of like a freeze frame of that moment that person died. And you can kind of explore the scene and see exactly how it happened. And then you, after you've seen the scene, you can open up your journal and you can start to make connections. Like you can say, this character was killed by this character using this weapon. And by piecing that together, and you start to solve exactly what happened. And there's like 12 chapters in the game and like 40 separate characters that either got murdered or managed to leave the ship alive.
Oh, wow.
That you need to actually resolve. It's a way bigger game than I was expecting, but it's super, super cool. Like, I love mysteries, and this is one of those mysteries that starts at the end as well. You start at the very last death and start working your way backwards to what happened. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting. I was just thinking another recent example of that style was, of course, Detroit, Become Human. So that had that kind of investigative bit, sort of fast forward rewind stuff in it as well. But that sounds awesome. That sounds really cool. Yeah.
It's really neat.
Nice. All right. Well, let's pass the baton on to Mr. Chia. Adrian, what's going on? What have you been playing?
Yeah, so as of last week, I think I mentioned that I picked up Warframe, and it has swallowed my life. So I've basically poured myself into that, and I'm loving it. It's great, which sort of matches up with expectations, because everywhere you read, people love raving about Warframe and talking about how great the community is and how great the gameplay is, etc., etc. And I think last I was on the podcast, I talked about how it was a bit daunting, and that probably hasn't changed too much. It is still quite a big ball of yarn that needs untangling. But that is a good thing in a way, because it means that every time you complete something, there's always something new around the corner. So there's constantly new mechanics being unlocked and new ways to access more content. And I have a feeling that's me slowly reliving the updates that have come out since the game launched, and I'm sort of getting to experience it all at once rather than waiting years at a time like other people.
So I have questions. I'm curious about a couple of things with regards to the
Sure.
Warframe progression. So, like, in terms of progression through to end game content, where would you place yourself at the moment? Are you getting close to that, or?
Oh, no. Oh, Luke.
Yeah.
Dear sweet
Even I know
Luke. No. The content is dense and varied and immense. And it's an interesting... Playing Warframe is an interesting exercise in self-control, which I'm not usually very good at. But this is interesting because if you want to avoid spending tons of money, you kind of have to let the game dictate to you how quickly you can experience certain content. So the game revolves mostly around collecting, looting, and building. So you're often building weapons, new warframes, which are basically your sort of player classes, for lack of a better way of putting it. Although there's like over 20 of them, so it's crazy. And all sorts of stuff like that. And usually, to give you an example, I played probably about 2 weeks before I even started getting the pieces to build my second Warframe. And then once you do collect all those pieces, it then takes 3 days, 3 real-time days to build. So even once you're like excited and you sit down, you click the button and like, great, it's building, awesome. Oh, I got to wait 3 days before I can actually use it.
So it's like a cooldown, is it? You're like a...
Or it's just a building process. So you collect... Every Warframe has a chassis, a head, and a neuroptics piece. And once you have all 3 pieces, you then need the blueprint to put it all together. And then you hit build, and then it takes 3 days to build that Warframe. And then once it's built, you can collect it and start using it.
And I assume you can pay to reduce that time.
Yes, you can. Yeah. So you can pay premium currency to speed that up. So it's kind of cool because you do start the game with a little bit of premium currency, and you can drop more to get more of it. But it's more of a quality of life thing. So there's nothing. It's one of the things about Warframe that's often gets a lot of praise, is that there's nothing locked behind a hard paywall. So everything in the game is accessible to everyone, even if you don't want to spend money. It just takes you quite a lot longer, but not quite to the extent of like a mobile freemium game where there's some stuff where, yeah, it takes longer, but we're talking years. At least all the stuff in Warframe is accessible eventually in a reasonable time frame, I'd say.
Yeah.
But
so that
I'm
core
really enjoying
gameplay loop at the moment, is that all PvE content, or are you doing PvP stuff as well?
No, it's all PvE at the moment because there's so much of it. I mean, you basically work through what's called the star chart, which is the solar system, and each planet you visit probably has, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20, what's the right word, levels or stations on it, and each of those is a mission mission. We'll say mission. Each of those planets has about 15 missions, and you tick them all off, and then you move on to the next planet. You don't always have to do all the missions on a planet to move on, and you slowly venture through the star chart, and as you go, you unlock new guns and warframes and things like that. But to answer your question about progression, the main way you progress is through something called mastery rank. And I'm only in mastery rank 5, and it goes like way up. I don't even know the ceiling on mastery rank. But the way you actually increase your mastery rank is by leveling up your gear and your warframes.
Right.
So as you level up your warframe more, because every warframe and every weapon can be leveled up to level 30, and as you level up a new weapon and a new warframe, it adds to your mastery bar filling up. So it actually encourages you to increase your mastery rank by swapping out weapons and leveling up ones that you haven't tried. So it encourages you to try all sorts of varieties of things. And then as you reach a new mastery rank, it unlocks more weapons that you can build. And so it feeds back into a loop like that.
That sounds super clever. I'm well impressed by what that sounds like. So can you team up with friends to do the PvE content? Like, can you go through as like a fire team sort of thing, or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think 4 is the maximum for a mission, but you can team up with anyone. You can team up with friends. You can team up with people in the lobby, in the global chat. It's great. And one thing I really love about it is that the game has like a real free economy. So it sort of dictates itself. And I thought it was a bit of a myth about the Warframe community. And granted, this is only one experience, but I'll share it quickly. I'm using a particular shotgun, and I was modding this shotgun. And modding is when you upgrade a weapon, and mods are individual drops that you get through playing the game. Sometimes you could buy them in stores, or like Destiny, sometimes you need to earn reputation and spend it at a vendor to get certain mods and items. And there's a particular mod that I wanted too, actually, that you needed to join up to a particular vendor and get the mod. And that was something that was probably weeks down the line for me. And I was like, I wonder if I could just buy it. And I had a little bit of this platinum, this premium currency, and I thought, I can afford it, because according to the websites, it is within my affordable range. So I thought, you know what? I'll try trading for the first time. I'll give it a go and see how that goes. So I opened up the trade chat, typed in, looking to buy this and this. And I had private messages from about half a dozen people all saying, 2 platinum, 1 platinum, 4 platinum. And then I had one guy say, hey, I see you're new. I'll just give them to you for free.
Huh.
And I was like, what? That's crazy, because as far as I knew, these mods weren't that easy to get. And so I was like, this is suspiciously cool. And so the guy invited me. When you trade with someone, you have to invite them to like a hub. So I got teleported into the hub. It's just me and this crazy looking Warframe in front of me who looks like a god. And he basically opens a chat and gives me these free mods. And the coolest thing about it was in the chat, he said, and the line was great, he said, helping new players is the true end game of Warframe. And I thought, I know, and it was so nice. And I thought, wow, it really is like all the legends say. The Warframe community is really that nice. And it's a little touch,
super wholesome.
But he also called me Tenno, and Tenno is the name of the player race in the game. And it's just this little thing where, like, when other people talk to each other, they call each other Tenno. It's like a nice little, like, friendly thing that everyone kind of buys into.
Like soft RP in the game sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so he says, good luck, Tenno, all the best. And then he said to me, just make sure you pay it forward when you're in the position to do so. And I thought that really summed it up really nicely. And I will, of course, definitely do that. So that was definitely a positive experience. So I'm not sure if I'm sure every community has its own little toxic pockets, but so far I've had nothing but a very positive experience. I've had that and a lot of other little one-off experiences with positive players as well. So yeah, really enjoying it. I'd highly recommend getting involved and experiencing it for yourself.
Man, I was sold before you proved that like there were cool people in the game, but now I'm super double sold. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. It just seems everyone just seems to be on board and everyone's happy to help. So I like that.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Oh, well, I guess moving on to other extremely positive experiences, Matt and Jam and I did some golfing during the week, which was a lot of fun. And by that, of course, we mean like killing hordes of zombies on the golf course of Fallout 76. So I'm still enjoying the game. What are you guys still thinking? You still on board?
It's still shit.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Adrian,
thought you were
the
asking
game
me.
crashed on me like 3 times in the space of an hour yesterday, and I still jumped on today.
Yeah.
I'm loving it.
I think that says
Yeah.
more about you guys than it does about Fallout 76.
That's probably true.
I had some struggles that night. We did the stuff on the golf course, but oh my god, that was so much fun. It was just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, it makes me want to see the end game content if that's the sort of ridiculousness we can expect.
Yeah. I mean, the end game content is pretty ridiculous. It's not, sending replacement canvas bag level of ridiculous, but it's pretty ridiculous. Yeah. So, we basically have been finding that there's this golf course on the map that, has a huge chunk of high level enemies in a whole bunch of buildings next to the fairway. And so setting up camp on that section and just kiting hordes of these high level zombies out into the waiting maw of your rows and rows of gun turrets seems to be a pretty fun way to get some cool loot and experience. So we've been doing that a little bit and, having some fun times, but it was actually really, really difficult until they just increased the stash limit this week. So now we can actually put all of the loot that we've been collecting somewhere, which is good. It has improved quality of life somewhat.
I'm still below 500 somehow.
I don't know how.
I haven't maxed it yet.
Yeah. But
My favorite part of just messing around with that golf course, though, was just running around my melee weapon out with all of these, just this horde of ghouls chasing me with my health gradually dropping because of all the radiation.
Yeah.
I just everybody upstairs shooting down at them. Like, it's so funny. Like,
you were more
yeah.
rad than man after that.
Yeah.
It was weird. I can just imagine you as like a crispy outer shell with a soft, squishy center. All right. Well, Fallout 76 aside, Jam, you went back to another game this week, which surprised me when I saw you mention it. So,
Right?
Yeah.
So one of our mates, Al, found out that the Xbox Games Pass, is that what it's called?
yeah.
I should have checked that. It's $1 this month.
Ah.
So he grabbed it and immediately installed Sea of Thieves. And I logged onto Discord and he and Fax were playing, Alan Fax, and they went, oh, hey, you want to play? And I went, oh, all right. And magically, Windows had kept it updated in the background. So I've played like an hour this week. And today played with Jason some too. And it's neat. I like some of the changes. I haven't seen them all yet. Haven't seen the big shark, the megalodon. Mm-hmm. But today I saw volcanoes, which are really scary but cool. And we got krakened. There's all these little sea posts dotted around. It's like a little tiny, tiny jetty with a shack attached to like a tiny rock in the middle of nowhere, where you can also sell some stuff. And yeah.
Nice. Did you see any of the skeleton ships that apparently are a big feature in the game?
No. Not in the hour I've spent in it, but I plan on jumping back in for more because I like the changes. The inventory management system is much better. It feels a bit smoother all round, and it was just really fun jumping on deck and bossing people around again. I love it.
Yeah. Might be a holiday game. Maybe that could be our New Year's game this year because we always find something on New Year's when we're all up late.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet.
Games. Yeah. Nice. All right, well, Christian, I think you and I have been pretty good sort of holding off. We ready for some card talk? I think we're long overdue for some card talk. What do you think?
That's right. It's looking my card corner now.
Yeah, all right. Let's do it.
So last week I started playing Artifact, which is Valve's new digital card game. Now, back when we did our halfway through the year episode, Artifact was actually the game I said I was looking forward to most for the remainder of the year because I love me some Hearthstone and I wanted to try out Artifact. And it's pretty cool. So I won't go into too much detail about how it actually plays because it's pretty complicated. It's way more complicated structurally than Hearthstone is, chiefly because it is a Dota-based card game, and it feels like Dota in that you have 3 different boards which represent the 3 different lanes. So you got three lanes, and each lane has a tower on it. So you have 3 towers, your opponent has 3 towers, and you win the game when you destroy 2 of your opponent's towers, or when you destroy the first tower, it gets replaced by an ancient, which has 3 times as much health. And if you just destroy the same tower twice, basically, then you can win that way as well. And then it's like Dota also in that creeps, so just weak minions will just spawn randomly through each of the 3 lanes. And kind of just battle each other out. And then you have a deck of cards and you assign heroes to the different lanes. So it's again, like in Dota, you'll send one hero top, you'll send one hero mid, one hero bottom. You can have up to 5 in the game. And then each of the heroes is one of 4 different colors. So it's kind of like Magic the Gathering, where there's different colors, each with different card themes. So there's green, black, red, and blue. And then having a hero of a particular color in that lane allows you to cast spells or additional minions of that color into that lane. So if you've got a blue hero in lane number 1, you can cast blue spells in there, etc. And there's kind of just a back and forth of plonking down your heroes, creating more minions or doing damage to the enemy heroes. And then each turn you go from lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, and then there's a shopping phase where, again, like in Dota, you can purchase items that you can equip on your heroes that give them more health, more attack, or different abilities. And then you repeat the process, lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, shop, lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, until the game's over. But it's just really fascinating to me how they have infused like a MOBA like Dota into a card game, because it even goes so far as like when one of your heroes dies, instead of being like removed from the game, they go back into the fountain, which is like a waiting area, and they basically lose a turn. So when your hero dies, you just lose them for a turn, and then 1 turn later you can assign them back to a new lane and they're fully healed. So it's just like in Dota, where if you die, you go back to the fountain and respawn. And it's so different to Hearthstone. It's so refreshing, and it has a much higher skill ceiling. Like the decisions you're making, it is a much more strategic game than Hearthstone is. So I'm having a lot of fun with it.
How long would you say a typical game goes for, time-wise?
Probably 20 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, 20 minutes or so, but it can go pretty quick if you just can steamroll. But I want you to try it out, Luke.
Yeah, I definitely will. I'm keen. I have just had my attention focused a little bit on another card game this week.
Yes.
So the latest expansion for Hearthstone just dropped as well. So Rastakhan's Rumble has launched. I think when was I opening card packs? Yesterday morning?
Yesterday morning, yeah.
That sounds about right, yeah. So I didn't crack open quite as many packs this time around as last time, largely because I had a stack of dust available to me, so I was just going to be able to craft a lot of the stuff that I needed without spending as much money.
Are you talking about cocaine? You just had tons of cocaine.
It's absolutely card cocaine.
And dust.
In fact, if I could roll one of these digital cards up, it would make the whole process a lot smoother. Anyway, so I've been playing that, having a lot of fun. I've got a new Dragon Warrior deck, which is proving to be quite entertaining, and playing a fair bit of Mage. So, I'm not going to talk about any of the mechanics specifically, because that'll no doubt bore people who don't play Hearthstone, but there's some wackiness and zaniness in this expansion that is very enjoyable, and the single-player content will be coming out later in the month, I believe, so similar to what they've done with past expansions. So
I think it's a decent expansion. It's nothing revolutionary for the game, which is fine. It's what you want. You don't want things that shake it up too much. It's kind of just puttering along in a happy place, Hearthstone. So
yeah, I would agree. It is good. All right, well, all things being good, let's go and talk about some good news.
Now it's time to hear some gaming news. Time for some gaming news.
All right, so starts off with some interesting news and probably goes into a bit of good news. But Matt, let's get you to deliver it for us. What's going on?
Interesting is a good way to put it. And I have some conspiracy theories.
Oh, yeah.
So Valve announced earlier in the week bigger revenue cuts for more successful games. And that's bullshit, I might add. But basically what it burns down to is if your game makes over $10 million on Steam, the revenue split changes from, this is now public information, previously it was under NDA, but for everybody on Steam, originally, your revenue split with Valve would be 70-30. So they would get 30%, you would get 70% of all your revenue and your sales.
Now, from what I understand, that's pretty common across the board with other platforms too, because I know that the Apple iTunes store is very similar, like the App Store, I should say, is similar for games also, my understanding is. So
I cannot confirm nor deny.
No, I'll say that I read that on a website somewhere and multiple times, so I suspect it's probably reasonably accurate. Yeah,
I would say that it is a fairly reasonable assumption to assume that that's pretty common across the industry.
Yeah.
But yes, so if your game earns over $10 million, your revenue split now becomes 75-25, with Valve only taking a 25% cut. And the thing they don't really make clear is if that's only taking effect after
Yeah.
the 10 million. I
read
imagine it
that's the
has
case.
to.
Yeah.
Because it has to make sense, right? And if you earn over 50 million, then it becomes 80-20. So basically this completely screws over indies, because if you're on Steam and making $50,000 is actually a big deal for you, well, congratulations, Valve's still going to take 30% of that from you. And so this is where the conspiracy theory comes in. So one, I think this is actually more just publicly stating their stance now, because I reckon they've made this deal for a long time with a lot of different publishers to try and keep them on the platform. And now it's just like, hey, everybody that's on the platform will give this deal to, no matter what deal we had with them in past, as far as whether or not it might have been EA or something like that, right? Or Ubisoft. Ubisoft's a good example because they're still on the platform because Uplay sucks.
Yep.
But more interestingly, they announced this only a couple of days before Epic announced that they were going to actually open up their own storefront, which apparently they've had for a while now, but they're opening it up to everybody. And they will be selling games on there. And rather than a 70-30 split, it's an 88-12 split, which is incredibly good. And if you make your game using the Unreal Engine, so the Unreal Engine compared to Unity you have to pay for upfront or pay a monthly fee, whereas with the Unreal Engine, you have to pay 5% of your game sales after a certain amount, I believe is the deal that Unreal has. Well, that 5% comes out of the 12% if you use their engine. So, yeah, that's incredibly good a deal. It basically means that if you make things in Unreal, you're only having to worry about a 7% take from Epic. So that's incredibly good. So I'm announcing now, my game, when I go and release it, it's only going to be on Epic's platform.
The big question I have, though, is the Epic Game Store is clearly going to be better for developers. But the bottom line is there going to be a price difference between the games on Steam and the Epic Store? Because as a consumer, sadly, the revenue to the developers isn't a priority. So whichever store is cheaper is still going to win out in the end.
Yeah, and any developer that chooses to put their games on multiple platforms, which in a lot of cases it'll make sense for them to do, then that's out of their hands, essentially. Yeah.
The way I see it, right, like, you're not going to see a price difference because the developers are going to be super excited about the fact that they can actually earn more money from every game sale on that platform. But more importantly, say that you're Ubisoft and, Valve's just going to make this announcement that they're only going to take a 20% cut, but then Epic follows that up with an announcement that they're only going to take 12. Which platform are you going to be more interested in sticking around on, right? And so that could basically mean that, hey, Far Cry 5, next Far Cry game isn't going to turn up on Steam. It's only going to turn up on Epic's platform. That will get people moving over to that platform, right? So you're not wrong.
I'm dubious of whether or not a company like Ubisoft would even do that, because sure, they get a greater percentage from each sale, but when they actually run the numbers on how many sales they lose by moving to the Epic Store when Steam is so ubiquitous, I fear that the math may still come out in the end that they're better off on Steam.
No, you're absolutely not wrong. But my point rather being that I could see a lot of indie developers in particular going
Indies
over
for
to
sure.
Epic and just sticking around on that platform. But I'm pretty sure, like, Epic has Fortnite. They're going to find something that they can put on their platform that's going to be exclusive to their platform. They have a library of different IPs that they can release exclusively on their platform that's going to encourage people to come over and not only use that platform, use that platform in addition to Steam, right? And you're going to end out with a bunch of indies that go over there exclusively. I don't know if any big publishers will go over there exclusively, because I honestly suspect that what we're going to see is more companies moving away from Steam and Epic Storefront to just make their own launches instead, because we've seen a whole bunch of launches popping up that have just been rather successful and people aren't complaining about them, right?
Yeah.
You don't hear people complaining about having the Blizzard launcher being a thing. Like, it's just there, they use it, and it's unobtrusive. People hate Uplay because it's obtrusive.
They were
as
even
fuck.
before Steam.
Yeah, they were there around before Steam, yeah. But they were also, like, another example is the Bethesda launcher, which we didn't know for the longest time was actually a thing that was running alongside Steam, but it was. And it's still one of those things where I haven't really seen a lot of people complaining about that because it's unobtrusive. It's not trying to be a storefront, it's just a launcher. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to see a lot more of that popping up in the industry with other big players. But well, actually, no, come to think of it, there's already most of the big players already have their own storefronts. So I guess we'll see what happens.
So here's the really interesting thing with this, and I think that you're right, Christian, this is something that's not going to change overnight. Like, I think if there is any sort of mass migration, it's going to be quite a while for that to sort of generate. And I mean, Epic are definitely doing the right thing and making a very aggressive move with the pricing to try and get it kickstarted, but I don't think that will be enough. I think it will take some time.
I was going to say, I think Matt's totally right about indies, though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's a good reason for them to do that.
Indies will flip the bird to Valve and will just move over to it.
Yeah.
Like, there's already been a fairly big mass migration of smaller games that just exist on itch.io.
Yeah.
And just run off of that platform because itch is just incredibly positive for indies. Like, it's so good. But then Epic is an epic name, it's an epic brand. So I reckon that there will be a lot more people that will go over to that in addition to itch, but ignore Valve because, I mean, like, whether or not they end out doing a lot of stuff like curating the platform is still up in the air. They mentioned that when they launch the store, it's going to be curated. Like, there'll be a few titles on there that they've specifically curated for this store. So we'll see how they run it in comparison to Valve as well, because that could also end out drawing over a lot of customers, right? Like, what's their refund policies like, and that sort of thing. Like, that will draw people over if they do it right.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just going to be a carbon copy of Steam, except it's got a better take for developers, because that only goes so far to get people using the platform, right?
Yeah. Discoverability is key. Like, people want to be able to find, their games, and developers are going to want to not have to compete for those eyeballs with too many other people. In a strange way, like, the more indies that migrate over to the new Epic platform might actually help clean Steam up a little bit in a weird way. Yeah.
There was also a bug. I say bug with finger quotes that nobody can see, but there was a bug on Steam apparently a couple of months ago that still exists to today, that was actually directing more people to big AAA games than indie games, and a whole bunch of developers were actually seeing massive drops in their sales, like talking about like a 50 to 60% drop in sales from what they were getting in previous months before this bug happened. And it's interesting that this bug, again, finger quotes, has persisted on Steam, so see.
Bug or feature, you decide.
Yeah.
But with Fortnite having like 200 million players now, this is the best time for them to make an attempt like this. And you think about the sort of things that actually got Steam into the position where it is now, like the launch of, the early Valve games like your Portals and your Half-Lives and, the Orange Box and stuff like that. Fortnite is kind of that line in the sand similar to that event where this could be the thing that actually gets the next generation of gamers on this platform and kicks that all off. So it'll be interesting to see.
Like, no matter what, competition is good, and Valve has not had solid competition in a long time, and I really do think that Epic can provide solid competition.
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, in other good news, Nintendo actually released a bit of an update via Twitter during the last week in regards to its not super long running, but for the last few years at least, content creators program. So now, basically what this content creators program is it was a way for Nintendo to maintain a very vice-like tight grip on the revenue being generated by people creating content using Nintendo IP online on platforms like YouTube. So this was sort of amidst a lot of the problems that YouTube's been having in recent years with the adpocalypse, as it's been sort of become known. So Nintendo sort of clamped down on use of a lot of their game assets a few years back, sort of launched the content creators program, and basically said anyone wanting to use Nintendo sort of IP as part of their videos needs to become part of this creators program. And as a member of the creators program, you basically would need to sign over 40% of your revenue to Nintendo, and that's not even sort of counting any other sort of cuts that get taken out by YouTube and other entities that they might be dealing with. So that is not real good for anyone who's trying to make a living off YouTube covering Nintendo games. That is a huge chunk out of their profits potentially. potentially, depending on how big they are, of course. The thing is that if people refuse to sign up for it, their content would start to get flagged. If Nintendo filed copyright against it, then they'd end up getting all of the revenue from it. So you kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Yeah.
It's also worth noting that 40% cut, Nintendo would demand a take even if the video wasn't covering something Nintendo related after you signed up with them.
Yeah, it dominated the channel, not just the content.
Yep.
It was not good at all. And some of the big names out there, like Achievement Hunter being a notable example, basically just stood up and decided we're not going to cover Nintendo games anymore. Like, it's done. There's no point us doing it. Now, they've kind of gone backwards on that in recent times, when some of the big titles have come out during the Switch's sort of rise to power in the last year or so. But it's still been a thing where a lot of content creators have been shying away from Nintendo because of how toxic that sort of arrangement is. But the sort of thing from Nintendo's angle is that if no one's creating content, with Nintendo games, then they're missing a huge opportunity when it comes to player-made marketing out there as well. So
I think it's no coincidence that Smash Bros is coming out so soon.
Absolutely, yeah. So obviously there's going to be a lot of stuff happening in the Smash scene. There's a lot of esports stuff and events that are going to want to be covering those games. Switch is getting bigger and more popular. Nintendo have had a slightly below expectation year this year in terms of profits, but that's not to say the Switch is doing badly. It's just that they, anticipated it being even bigger than it actually ended up being. So, it seems like a really sensible move, one that's probably come a little bit too late, but I'm for one, very, very happy that they've finally done it and killed the Creators Program because it sucked, basically. It was bad. Yep.
So, speaking of big names changing their policies, I wanted to just briefly talk about something that Sony did, which is kind of aligns with my interests and I thought was worth talking about. So, anyone who's listened before may have picked up I'm kind of like the resident weeb. I'm a bit of a bit of a degenerate weeb. And Sony's introduced a new policy that is making it much more difficult and much more restrictive to get adult content onto their platforms, particularly like anime, titties, that kind of stuff. I know, right? Now, it's banned the release of a couple of games that were in production: Omega's Labyrinth Z, Silverio Trinity, all games that no one has ever heard of.
Not
and
Silverio Trinity.
I know, but these are still games that people want to play, all right? And it's also affected Senran Kagura and Naruto Oju no to Norineko, of course. Everyone loves that game.
Yep.
Now, specifically, what they're doing is things that were too risque visually. They are requiring developers to put big shafts of light covering areas, so any visuals, and they're removing any modes or games that involve like anything interactive that's adult. There's mostly like visual novels and certain modes in the Senran Kagura games. Now, this all happened without any official statement, and then the Sony Interactive Entertainment Japan president, Atsushi Morita, made a statement saying, about the censorship, we are trying to meet global standards regarding the balance of freedom of expression and safety for children. It's a tough problem to deal with, which, fair enough, okay, but I want to just go into a little bit of a rant. So censorship is a hugely touchy subject, yeah, and there's definitely a difference between like localizing a game, so changing it for a particular market, like was done with Fire Emblem. Certain dialogue was changed, and it's understandable that companies don't want like porn on their platforms, like straight up, and it's also unfortunate that usually the loudest voices that are discussing censorship comes from a kind of unpleasant group. So a lot of the kind of Gamergate type of people you get, people who complain about SJWs, that kind of crap, they're often the people that are dominating the conversation. But I think just because those kind of undesirable people do dominate the conversation doesn't mean that people like myself, who are a bit more level-headed, I'd say, with this topic, I'm still allowed to disagree with it. And in particular with this story, the thing I don't like is that not only is it affecting games that were previously already allowed on Sony platforms, so a lot of these games are like remasters or re-releases of games that were previously allowed intact on their platforms, whether they're PlayStation 3 games, Vita games, or Japanese games coming to the West. And it's also affecting games that are released uncensored on other platforms, including Nintendo platforms. So games like Senran Kagura are intact on the Nintendo Switch, and Nintendo is typically seen as the more conservative, children-friendly publisher. But the Sony policies are becoming more strict than Nintendo, and that's the kind of thing I think is interesting to talk about. Is that it's not just Sony having an adult content policy, it's them having a more conservative adult content policy than ever before and more conservative than other publishers and developers. Yeah, so, I mean, 99% of gamers aren't going to care about this. The type of games are, way outside the wheelhouse of most people. But anytime a company is telling an adult like me what content isn't appropriate for me to purchase, I think it's worth keeping an eye on, personally. So.
I
Sony,
100%
also-
agree.
Yeah, I 100% agree as well. And it's also really, really important to note the timing when Tumblr and Facebook are right now announcing these sex-free policies.
Yeah.
Because this is all kind of spurred on by the Sesta-Foster stuff that the United States passed not that long ago, which was the Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act stuff. And there's a lot of big companies, especially Apple, that are pushing this stuff really, really hard. Like, there's a lot of people that are pointing out that Apple is potentially the reason why Tumblr has taken the stance it's taken, because Apple went and removed the Tumblr app from their store because they were like, there's child pornography in your app, and so therefore it's not acceptable here. And Tumblr basically being like, well, we can't find a way to only remove that, just removed everything, basically. So I would not be at all surprised if the reason that Sony's making this move is for the same reasons, and if we will not be seeing other companies making similar moves in the very near future, I would be surprised. So,
Yeah. So first they came for the anime titties, all right, and then next they came for the thing that you care about. So keep an eye out.
God damn it, Sony! Why don't you just let Christian have his hentai? I mean, fuck.
That's right.
I find
mean,
it interesting that the way that they are dealing with some of it is with those like shafts of light, though. I mean, they
Yes,
just need to get
yeah.
J.J. Abrams involved in this shit and just cover up
get
all
some
the
lens
titties with
flares.
their lens flares. So.
oh my god.
I've got plenty shafts of light spare if they need a bit more censoring.
What else you got, Adrian?
Apart from shafts of light, I have Pokemon Go. So big news, which everyone has been eagerly anticipating. Pokemon Go has finally added trainer battles into the mix. So this is exciting on one level, but I'm very skeptical on another because obviously I think the Polygon article says Pokemon Go's trainer battles bring true multiplayer to the game. I'm sorry, but true multiplayer Pokemon is the original Pokemon games, not Pokemon Go for a start. So, and that kind of echoes my greater concern about the feature. I mean, there's only so much they could do in the style of game anyway, but a lot of it condenses down to just tapping the screen furiously. Except now you're standing opposite a friend and you're both tapping the screen furiously.
Well, no, if you're a good enough friend, you don't have to be immediately opposite, do you?
That's true. Yeah, they've added. Part of the feature is that you can battle not only with someone locally on your friends list. You could potentially battle someone on the other side of the world, which again is fun. If you enjoy tapping your screen furiously while someone on the other side of the world taps their screen furiously. So
We just talked about this whole topic. It's the
I was going
Sony.
to say, that sounds like some of my games.
Yeah. Hopefully the battling goes a little bit more in depth than that. It's still early news, so I think they have talked about adding one extra move that your Pokemon could do. Traditionally in Pokemon Go, each Pokemon only knows 2 moves, and I think they've added a third option for a third move. They claim to be more tactical. Whether or not it is truly tactical, I'm not sure. We'll find out once I give it a bit of a go. One thing I do like, however, and it's actually relevant to one of my complaints in the past that I've said multiple times on the podcast, is the fact that you never get a chance to use your favourite Pokemon because it's usually a shit one, in my case anyway, because I love Krabby and Kingler. But it turns out part of this trainer battles system is that Pokemon will be grouped into different leagues depending on their maximum CP limit. So CP, for those uninitiated, is basically the power of individual Pokemon. Each individual Pokemon in Pokemon Go has a max CP or combat power, I think it is. And so depending on a Pokemon's maximum CP, they fall into one of 3 categories. There's the Great League, the Ultra League, and the Master League. And for those interested in the numbers, the Great League has a maximum limit of 1500 CP, the Ultra League has a limit of 2500, and the Master League has no limit. So my Krabby finally gets to feel like a champion and can fight in the Great League.
Hooray!
So that is exciting for me because it means there is now a reason to level up some of those crappier Pokemon and put them to good use. So I'm very excited about that in particular.
Yeah. Seems like there'll be a few in-game rewards and stuff for doing the battles, which sounds cool. So there's a good reason to do it.
Yeah, I know that they've introduced recently. Are they called Sinnoh Stones?
Something like that.
I think it's Sinnoh Stones. There's a handful of Pokemon that require a special item in the game called Sinnoh Stones to evolve. And I have read that this trainer battling is one of those ways you can earn those stones. Potentially, as long as other rewards as well. And like Pokemon Go and a lot of other games that work on this kind of system, there'll be incentives and there'll be goals and there'll be, milestones you can reach. So, it'll be good. The only exception I take, like I say, is the opening line about it being true multiplayer. So, if you could have a full battle system, that would be the dream.
Have any of us played Let's Go yet? Because I know that, I haven't yet because I've got it waiting for my kids for Christmas. But have any of us actually played the other ones yet? I'm just wondering if the
no.
PvP in those games is similar to this or not.
It might be a Christmas present to myself.
No.
So.
Fair enough. Yeah.
The battling in Let's Go is standard mainline battling.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Can you fight other players?
Yes, you can.
Okay, cool. Oh, well, there you go.
Makes sense.
But I mean, it is sort of a bit of a Frankenstein game between Pokemon Go and a mainline game, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's good that they have the battling in there. So we'll see what happens. I mean, obviously, what we're all waiting for is the new main Pokemon game that's probably on the horizon. So that'll be the key. And I'm waiting for my fabled ice crab Pokemon. That will be the king
I
Pokemon.
am curious as to whether PvP Pokemon Go will get jammed playing it again. What do you think?
Nah.
Nah.
That ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I should mention there is an ice crab Pokemon called Crabominable, but he's trash. So don't get any of you listeners sending us tweets and your emails saying there is an ice crab Pokemon, Adrian, because it doesn't count because it's crap. I'm sorry.
Cut that. Make them send angry emails and tweets.
No,
Community engagement,
it.
damn it.
So, Red Dead Online update. I made a character, and she's awesome. But with all of the complaints out and about in the community about the economy and the grind that it takes to earn money, I've kind of held off playing much beyond the initial tutorial.
Yep, same.
But Rockstar, it's just like a bit, I don't want to waste my time. There's so many other stuff to play, like Fallout, which is awesome. Hey. Rockstar have announced that the way they've developed the game, they can quickly update and balance those issues and that they're listening. So they've said they're going to roll out an update this week and some further stuff next week to try and address that issue. The thing is, I mean, how far are they going to go? Because it's cash cow for them. GTA Online, cash money. Yeah, they're not going to go too far. So we'll see. But I've otherwise heard good things about the crazy shenanigans you can get up to. So we'll have to figure out a time to get on together.
As far as the economy goes, I'm surprised. Like, have people forgotten that this is supposed to be a beta? Like, this isn't.
No, but it's more like they would have been able to have cost this in. Like, you would think it's not a surprise if they know how long a mission takes and what the payout's going to be.
Yeah.
That equates to, I want to buy this new vest. Well, shit, that's 3 days or more of grinding. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm just going to say it right now. Like, there's less stuff to buy and do in Red Dead Online compared to GTA Online. But if you go back to GTA and you set your sights upon a really nice vehicle and intend on buying it, congratulations on your several week grind just trying to get gold and cash to go and buy that thing without spending $1 on the game, because that's how it's built. It is built to be a grind. And I don't expect Red Dead Online is going to be any different, because Red Dead's shit.
Well,
I'm just thinking 3 days for a vest. People need to play some fucking Warframe by the sound of it.
I made that up. I don't know what's accurate, but it sounds, super grindy at the moment. But I've been meaning to jump back on just to hunt more, but I got, ganked by another player very quickly. And that made me sort of switch it off for a bit.
Yeah. No, it's fair enough. And there's a lot to play at this time of year, let's face it. There's
So much.
Yep. Anyway, and one of those things, of course, being our party game of the month. So it's been a couple of months since we did the party game of the month segment, sort of getting distracted by all things PAX and stuff in between. But we are back, and for our final party game of the month segment for 2018, I'm going to hand over to Adrian to introduce this one. So what did we play this month, mate?
Yeah, so, I'm hoping you guys can fill me in a bit on it, because I had to be the one loser of the group, and not actually play the party game of the month. Hooray! So I was going. I didn't get round to getting into it, but what I thought I might do was conduct a bit of a current affairs interview session and have you guys fill me in on Scythe. So I will take the form of the listener in this segment and ask some questions that maybe everyone else wants to know. So, Luke, maybe you can explain to me, what is Scythe, first of all?
That's exactly how this shit runs. Good job. So it's a board game, basically, that has been made into digital format. So anyone who's heard of Asmodee, one of the largest board game publishers in the world, owns such companies as Fantasy Flight Games, for instance, part of Asmodee Group. They're a fairly large company. So Asmodee Digital has published this one. It's been developed by a company called Knights of Unity, which I haven't actually heard of before. I think they might just be involved with board game to digital adaptations. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, so they developed this game. Asmodee published it. It was released not that long ago, so it actually came out on the 5th of September this year. And it's only on Steam at the moment, from what I can gather, for $20 US. I think we picked it up for 30 Australian at the moment. It's just around that limit for what we will do for party games. So yeah, it's I guess the best way to describe it is it's like a weird war, alternate history sort of map conquest game that's very heavy on resource management. It it reminds me a little bit of, because Jam and I played this a while back in the day, the board game sort of version of Civilization. It kind of feels a little bit like that.
Sort of.
Yeah. But it's probably a bit tighter than that. It's not sort of built on
definitely
exploding all over the map so much. It's more about like keeping a very, very tight control on all of your actions and your resources. And it's you need to think out your strategy in a very precise way because every action counts, because there's only so many of them you can make during the game. So
okay, so how many players can play at once?
I think 5's the limit online, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's 5 factions.
5 factions, right. And is it the sort of game where each of those people playing starts off controlling a corner of the board, or do you pick where you start, or how does that work?
Yeah, the map's pretty well themed around each of the different starting regions for the 5 factions. And from what I understand, the map is fixed. So, Jam, is that right? You started in the same... Yeah.
I started in the same location for that particular map the couple of times I played, but it sounds like there are different playmat options also.
The playmats, isn't that just changing how your the mechanics of the game work, like with you expending resources in order to perform actions? So I think the map is always the same. It's the central.
The map is always the same.
Europe. Yeah, and because the factions are historically based, it's kind of like Risk, where they are alternate historically based. They are situated in their alternate historical locations. I don't think they move around.
Yeah. The factions reminded me a lot of, and Christian and Adrian will be able to relate to this, the factions from the Privateer Press miniatures game War Machine. So very similar to that kind of thing, because there's mechs involved. There's a faction that's very Russian in nature. There's another one that's more like the Saxons, and kind of. It's a bit steampunky in a way.
It's much more grounded than War Machine.
Definitely.
No real fantasy elements.
Not magic. It's more just technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so how do you win the game? Are you competing to control territory, or are you competing to eliminate the other players, or what's the end goal of the game?
I'll field this one because I played an entire match of it without actually knowing what the win condition was. So it turns out that the win condition is to collect a number of different resources through the game. So you want to accrue popularity, you want to accrue territory, as many workers as you can, you want to win battles, do all sorts of different things, and then at the end of the game, everything's tallied up, and there's a multiplier based on how much popularity you've got, and you get a total score from a range of different sort of sub objectives you can complete. Now, the way the game ends is when one player accrues 6 stars. Now, you get a star from completing like a little mini objective. So it may be get 4 mechs and you get 1 star. Get 8 workers, you get 1 star. As soon as one player has 6 stars, the game ends, and then everyone's score gets tallied up. But I made the mistake of thinking that the player who gets the 6 stars wins the game. So I was rushing around, achieving these little mini objectives and thinking that I was being clever. And then I got the 6th one. Yes, I thought I've won the freaking game on my first go. And then the scoreboard comes up and I'm dead last. And I was just like, what? And then it turns out that there's actually like a whole raft of win conditions I didn't even know about.
Yeah.
The scoring's complex.
My first game went exactly the same way, Christian. Don't worry.
Okay, so then in regards with the mechanics of the game, how long do you have to play to earn enough child shards to No? Oh, not child shards. Okay,
no child
different
shards.
game. Okay, so what are we looking at paying for Scythe if someone's interested in jumping into it?
It's just $30 for the digital edition. I've got no idea how much the board game version is, and we actually have a good friend named Jason who is involved in playing a Scythe campaign at the moment of the board game version. So, yeah, it seems like a thing that you can do. Just $19.99 US, $30 Australian, and I don't know. There seems to be a fair bit of game there. I don't know about the replayability though. It's a lot of fun. I guess we'll get into that with our closing thoughts, but it seems like you certainly wouldn't want to be asking for more for this game, is my general feel.
Yeah.
So let me open it up. How do you think this? Because obviously it's a PC adaptation, as far as I'm aware of as you say, an existing game.
Yeah.
How do you think this style of game translates onto the PC in regards to playing with other people and having a multiplayer experience? And maybe broadly, do you think that these types of games work well on that platform? Is it recreating a good sense of like getting together on a games night, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's quite good in that if you know the game and you have friends to play with, it's an excellent way to connect without having to gather at a house. The issue with it, where it fails, is how it explains the game if you're not already familiar with it, and how you can access information and rules once you're in the game if you're not familiar with it. So we ran through the tutorials first, and it's just a sequence that you click finish at the end of each one. It took about 10 minutes of tutorials.
Yep.
That ran from basic movements through to resource management. The game works in that you take actions on these tracks down the bottom of your screen, and they're aligned in columns. So you've got a top and a bottom in each column. So if you select the top track action to take on your turn and you have enough resources for the bottom one below it as well, you can take both actions.
Right, okay.
Otherwise, your turn ends. You can upgrade those actions. You can build buildings. There's so much little complex detail in how you can influence the board, but also shape what actions are available to you and how much they cost and what they produce. And it does an all right job of explaining those, but it gets a bit lost in the detail and the finesse and how they relate to other things. And then the scoring tutorial, which Christian clearly skipped, is just this wave of information and you go, what?
No, to be fair, I didn't skip that. I did that tutorial and I still didn't understand it when it came to playing the first game.
That's what I mean.
I did it as well.
What it feels like to me is when you sit down and play a board game with your friends, you always are learning when you're playing the first game. One person maybe takes a bit more charge in explaining how the rules work, and they'll be more familiar with the rule book, and they provide more context to what's actually going on. Whereas these tutorials are very isolated. It's just teaches you one little thing, and then you go on to the next tutorial, and there's very little context. And it's like having a physical rule book and just reading like 2 lines of the rule book.
And then skipping to another page.
Skipping to another random page, reading 2 more lines. You don't get the bigger picture. And that's one of the things I think is harmed by it being a digital game. And if you have experience with the physical game already, then it's aces. You're loving it. But as a first-time player, it was a bit disjointed in how it actually explains the game to you. And
I was going to say, I think it's worth adding that there's a lot of edge cases in there as well when it comes to the rules that feel like they were the tabletop rules, and then they've just kind of been taped on to kind of smooth out some of the rough edges. And it's almost like house rules that exist for the tabletop, but they've actually gone and converted them into actual rules in the game. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's just really super unclear. And I'm going to disagree with Jam a little bit. I think that it's a really, really bad, taking, in terms of how well it took the tabletop and converted it into a digital game, I think they did a really bad job, because it's a missed opportunity to convert the game into a digital format rather than just taking a tabletop and making it run on PC. It doesn't do what like Armello does, which takes advantage of the platform by doing a whole bunch of stuff that you couldn't do on an actual tabletop, right? So it does everything the tabletop does, including all the imbalanced bullshit the tabletop does. And at that point, why not just go out and buy the tabletop? Like, the only thing you're really getting out of it is the single player, the ability to go and play single player. Like,
and being able to play remotely with people who aren't in the same house as you.
Yeah, like you guys did today.
But even then, you need them to go out and buy the game as well. And at that point, at $30 a pop, you can probably just buy the tabletop and play it together.
Not if you're in different cities.
Not if you're in different cities, but at the same time, I'm going to say it's not worth it.
Yeah, the pricing issue, yes. I don't know that it's priced appropriately, but the other issue it has is when you're in game. So the flip side is you think, okay, learn by doing. Have some practice against some bots, play against some friends. While you're in game trying to piece all of the little bits together and understand what the tutorials haven't covered for you, I couldn't locate a manual to help me out, and you can hover over things on screen with your cursor, which will bring up a little tip, but the tips are very brief and badly written, and the game tends to, if someone else is doing an action, pull your screen away, so your cursor shifts off whatever you've hovered over, and the tip vanishes.
Yeah, that's
it just becomes really difficult to follow and pick up things as you go without failing and then learning why that didn't work.
And there's also like
tricky.
When we were playing earlier today, like my embarrassing moment was there's a ability that's almost a necessity to take called river walking that you can get for your mechs, and the tooltip for it kind of describes how it allows players to enter into other players' territory from specific tiles. And the way it's worded is it sounds like, okay, well, this is an ability I won't really need until endgame when I'm actually going and attacking other players' starting islands. But it turns out, no, it's just worded so badly that the only part of the ability that they explain is how it specifically allows you to jump into other players' starting areas. And when it gives you all these little helpful arrows that point only inwards towards islands and everything, not outwards. So I didn't take the ability only to discover that I actually do need that ability to leave my island, but all the indicators on screen weren't telling me at all that it would actually help me hop off the island. It would only help me hop onto other people's islands.
Yeah.
And because it's just worded so terribly badly, and because I don't have a manual that I can pick up and read through and go, oh, okay, this makes sense. Like, I literally thought I was being smart because the tutorial had the tooltips had told me that, this is the way this thing works. And sure enough, it was the way that thing worked, but not in the weird edge case that I was expecting it to be, given how it was worded. It's just, all the tooltips in the tutorials are just lengthy and wordy, and it feels like, if you hopped in there with experience of the game, you'd probably be fine with it and not give a shit about those things. But as somebody learning the game, it's crap. It is real crap.
Interesting. All right, so maybe in summary, how about each of you give me a one-word description of Scythe? So think of one word that sums up your experience and how you feel about the game.
One word? That's
not enough.
That's not enough.
Make it
I
two
refuse.
words.
Adrian's sick of this conversation already.
Fair enough. All right, well, we'll just get some closing thoughts. So, Luke, what did you think overall of Scythe?
From what everyone else is saying, I'm getting the impression I probably enjoyed it more than everyone else.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, like I actually think that I don't necessarily disagree with what Matt was saying about it being not a great sort of adaptation of the board game, but I think that without it actually trying to do clever digital specific stuff, I actually think that it is a decent adaptation in terms of how the game plays and the layout with regards to the controls and stuff. The biggest downfall is exactly what we were just describing. The onboarding for it is terrible. So actually learning how to play, despite the fact that there's a lot of tutorial content in there, it just doesn't do the job. And I think the lack of being able to refer to an internal rulebook is part of that. The fact that it's the nature of the game is so complex that actually being able to work all the elements in balance to win and actually get a a score that will help you win the game is crucial. You can't just understand one mechanic of the game in isolation. You have to understand how it all works together. That's key. That makes it really hard. I don't know how I'd do it better, though, to be honest. Like, besides providing a rulebook in-game and maybe seeing some sample footage of maybe a few more of the elements working together, as opposed to just individual mechanics in isolation. I think it's just a really hard game to explain. It clicked for me on my third run, but when it clicked, I started to think this is actually a really cool game, and I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's actually, there's probably a couple of balance areas they need to address. Like, one of the factions in particular seems to be way more powerful than the others because of a special ability that it has, but playing a bit more might reveal that to not be quite as severe as it seems initially. But look, I really like it. I think that the audio is great, the visuals are great. Some of the characters on the board irk me a little bit because the way that they're presented is a little inconsistent with the other ones. Like, there's these really nicely rendered character pieces of like this giant sort of bear with a warrior riding on top of it, and then you've got these weird worker pawns that look like meeples from Carcassonne. So it's a bit inconsistent. But like, overall as a package, I think it's probably like it's good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's maybe not quite worth the amount of money that you're paying for it, especially when you look at the multiplayer side of things. But look, I would still recommend it. I think it's a fun game. So
cool.
Yeah.
James, what do we think of Scythe?
I agree with Luke. The core game, Scythe itself, I am a huge fan of now. After just a couple of games, I can see how it would be a huge amount of fun to play with a group of friends who are familiar with it, because there's a lot of strategy, and it's very interesting that the trigger for calculating the win is separate to the actual scoring for the win.
I do like that a lot.
It opens up this whole avenue of timing and planning, and it's quite extraordinary. The resource management's fun. I like these types of games. It's really neat. But yeah, the onboarding is garbage. As a new player, I was absolutely lost, and I don't think the price point is right. If each of my friends has to pay $30 for this, I think that's just pushing away a lot of customers. But
Yeah, sure.
I'm seriously considering getting the board game now.
Maybe it needs that feature that Mario Kart on the DS had, where as long as one of you had the game, other people
I
could
was going to
play
say the
as
exact same thing. Yeah,
That would be incredible.
That should be standard for digital board games.
Well, some of them you can
Yeah.
buy as a package, and it gives you like 4 copies of the game for a bundle cost.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
Get it on sale. Get it on
Yeah.
sale. Get it as a package, humble bundle. I don't know.
And then you could gift it to people, and then you could all play
Exactly.
it together. That sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
So,
all right, Matt,
I
what
went and
do we
looked it
think?
up. So, as an aside, real quickly, I went and looked it up. You can go and buy Scythe the board game for $90. Whereas if you and your friends, you wanted to get 5 people together to play it, you'd be looking at $150.
But each of you can play it whenever you want. So, I mean, that's... Yeah,
I guess.
it's still overpriced, though.
It's way overpriced. It's way overpriced. If you could get 5 people together for $90, then totally different manner.
Yeah. If it
that's-
was polished, if it was like 100%, hey, new person, check this out, and you learn and understand the game, maybe?
I think that's the motivation, though, because Asmodee Digital, this isn't the first time they've done this. They actually don't want to undercut the cost of their their physical games too much, because then people will just buy the digital versions and not the physical ones. So
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, in terms of my opinion, it's an excellent homage to the actual physical tabletop, and that's its biggest problem. It carries over all the balancing flaws from the original. Like, it's easy enough for us to say, oh, I don't understand why they just won't rebalance stuff, but that's the point, right? It's taking the stuff, the content that the tabletop has provided them, and putting it into digital format in the exact same way that the actual physical tabletop's put together. And so it even carries over those physical flaws, which is why there's literally an option that's turned on by default that doesn't allow one of the empires to have a specific combo, because it's so overpowered that it just destroys everybody.
Yeah.
But at the same time, in terms of like my personal preferences, there's nothing here to explore. There are going to be excellent plays, and if it fits, it's almost like chess, right? You either are playing chess at a really high level and you're defeating everybody, or you're learning how to play chess, and if you're playing against other people that are learning how to play chess, then chess is fun. But this game is one of those things where if you know it inside and out, if you know the strategies, then you're going to pick an empire, you're going to pick a starting playboard, and you're going to go in there and you're going to do the same strategy you did last time at the start, and then deal with the way the board changes towards the end. It's just, that's not that interesting to me.
That's a good point, because there's no random elements in this game at all. There's no dice rolls or anything.
Yeah, there's no random. The only random element is the card events. That's the only thing. And all those do is they give you an opportunity to spend some gold or earn some resources or something like that. Like, there's nothing in there that really changes from game to game except for the way that other players are changing, which is why the chess comparison is actually fairly apt. Because it's also like chess in terms of how it feels to learn to play it. Chess is one of those games where you can feel like you're not playing it wrong, but it's not about how you play it. It's about the strategy and thinking several moves ahead and everything like that. And it's the same thing here. Like the scoring system, you really need to be thinking ahead on the scoring system, because you can see another player, steamrolling ahead on stars and be like, well, I'm just going to strategize myself to just pumping up my popularity so that at least by the time that we're point scoring, those stars matter less than your popularity score and the multiplier you get from it. So the problems I have with the game are fundamental to the tabletop itself. There's literally full game strategies out there. I went and had a look because I was curious. For every empire with specific combos with certain playmats that dictate which specific tiles you should move to, because every empire starts at the exact same spot on the exact same map every single game. Like, you compare that to like Stellaris or Civ or even Armello, where there's some randomization there that you might go in there with an original strategy you're thinking about, but you're going to have to change that really quickly. But the start of Scythe is slow enough that you don't really have to worry about what the other players are doing until the mid or end game, really. Yeah. And so you're basically just playing the same game through to that point and trying to make yourself as strong as possible by playing the strategy that everybody recommends. Honestly, I would love to get a refund. But yeah, my issues with it, I think, are fundamental to the tabletop itself. And it's because of how clunky the digital version is, it's put me off of playing the physical version. So, yeah.
Well, there you go. Glowing praise. Christian, what do we think of Scythe?
I like it. I like it quite a lot. I think that other than the onboarding, as everyone else has discussed, and as I fell victim to myself, other than that, it is a faithful and accurate recreation of the tabletop game. And I think that is exactly what it's trying to be. I think that it doesn't have any random elements or things that are unique to the video game medium, because it's not trying to be that. It's just trying to be a digital version of Scythe. And it does that fine. Like, I think that's I've got no problem with how it does that. It's a handy alternative for people who can't all get together and play the board game. They want to play it digitally. It runs smoothly. It looks nice. The rules of the game are intact, and it's digital Scythe. And I think it's quite fun. It reminds me a lot of the Game of Thrones board game, actually, in that it has no random elements. Same system where it's all just decision making and resource management. I actually tend to prefer those sorts of games to games with random elements, because it is more strategic. You can plan specifically what you intend to do and not have just the fates interfere with your plans. And yeah, like, it's sure you can Google the meta strategies, the strongest faction, the strongest strategy. You can do that for almost any game. Any board game, you can look up on Board Game Geek what the strongest strategies are, and there'll be people discussing them. But you don't need to do that. And when you're just playing with your mates, at least in our circle, no one's doing that. Everyone's just playing the game and giving it their best shot, and no one's focusing too much on the optimum strategies. So I think it's a fun little resource management alternative history digital board game, and that's all it's trying to be.
Yep. That being said, your point about Game of Thrones, like, if Game of Thrones was an option to play instead of this, I would jump on that every single time, because that game is rad.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess that wraps up our Game of the Month. It sounds interesting. I actually regret not being able to find the time to play it because it sounds controversial, if nothing else. So I look forward to maybe picking up in the future, and maybe we can play it all together and see if we can flesh it out a bit more.
Well, I think Jam should just pick up the physical edition, like she mentioned before, and then we've got it sorted. So yeah.
I mean,
Wow, yeah, then we could
but
play
one
it.
lucky listener is winning a version, so we have to play online with them, surely.
That is true. That is true.
true.
So who's our winner this month, Jam?
Our winner this month is Mitch Lowe. Thank you very much for your suggestion. It's been added to our list for
Yay,
future party
Mitch.
games, and you will be getting
Hooray.
a copy of Scythe Digital Edition.
Nice.
Not the physical copy.
No.
Yay, Mitch, you can play it with Matt. He'll love to play Scythe.
I mean, I'm stuck with it now. Like, quite honestly, as given the panning I've given it, I would still play it again to learn how to play one of the empires correctly without looking at a strategy.
And
But-
with friends.
And with friends, exactly.
Because
I'm
that
not
makes
gonna
it
play against-
entertaining. Every time we listen to each other go, oh shit, I shouldn't have done that. It's just hilarious.
I mean, I completely tanked the game out as I've described, but it was just like playing a physical board game where the first time is just learning, and
Yeah.
that's how it goes. That's usual. So
But
Yeah.
Adrian didn't ask the most important question.
Oh, no.
Who
What was the
won?
most important question?
That's the
who
important
won?
question.
Of course,
It's
that's
me.
important to you,
It's the
Jam.
most important question. I
No,
smashed
I
it.
think it's the least important question, personally.
I
It
would,
is.
I would like to point out, I'm pretty sure I put in the most time because I have 4 hours in Scythe now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What do I have?
Yeah, wow. The most important question is, was it
two.
better than Fallout 76? And the answer is yes, of course it was.
No. Stop.
All right.
I
Well,
will find you.
well, as things come to pass, we do, of course, need to move on to another game
Yes.
for next month.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. I've got my random number generator.
Awesome. So, as per usual, we have a list of games that people have suggested to us. And the way that people can get those suggestions into us, Christian, are how?
cool. So you can email, not snail mail. You can email your suggestions to mail@partyloaded.com. You can drop us a suggestion on Facebook on the Party Loaded page. You can tweet at us at Party Loaded Show. And yeah, we'll add your suggestion to the list. And then once per month, we will randomly pick somebody who has suggested a game in the past to win a copy of that month's party game. So suggest, and then yeah, we may pick you and get a free copy of the game. So
Spot on. What we're looking for is great game suggestions that are less than $30 US, that basically can be played in a reasonable amount of time. So we don't want to be sort of spending, more than 8 or so hours to try and suss this thing out. We want to get a good impression from just a few hours play. It's got to be either not a platform exclusive or available on PC so that we can actually all play it if one of us doesn't have a particular console, for instance. And it's got to be released already, so nothing that is yet to be released. Early access is fine, just make it a decent one, basically. So, all right. So we got the list. Jam, you got the device. I assume you shut the dock, so...
It's one of my fancy new ones from Kraken Dice that I recently got.
Oh,
It's really
nice.
heavy metal dice. Listen to this. It's a 7. It's a
I
7.
like the little quiet thunk thunk.
I was like,
That
I
was
wasn't
the
Quiet
nearly-
while I
nearly
rolled
as
it on my
impressive.
mat. I didn't want to damage my desk.
All right.
Well, actually,
Hang
it's
on.
so important
Listen.
the world moves around it.
There you go. That's on it.
All right. Well, Christian, can you quickly look this one up while I mention what it is? So,
I've heard of this game before. This is Ra.
Yeah, all right, cool.
So this is an early access game.
It's going to be hilarious.
And I
I'm
think it's
so
a jam.
down.
It's a jam game. So it's
It's a jam game.
It's a survival game where you're out on the ocean and you have to build a raft and fish and protect yourself from
Oh,
sharks.
shit,
and,
I know this game. Yeah.
I've just needed
Yeah.
an excuse to get this. Seriously, we have friends who are going to jump on board because they are mad keen. So this is going to be funny.
Definitely a jam game, and I'm going to make a prediction. It's not a Christian game, but we'll see.
All right, nice.
I have been watching some YouTubers play it, and it is so funny. Like, I'm super looking forward to playing this.
Yep.
Hooray!
Is it multiplayer at all, or is it single?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's multiplayer.
Online co-op.
Cool. Well,
So-
we just need to organise a time for all of us to play then, and I'm sure that'll be amusing. Yeah.
If you've ever heard of Minecraft's Skyblock mod,
Yeah, we played a ton of that, man. What,
Sky
you kidding,
Factory,
kidding me?
we played-
Yeah.
oh no, so there's a Skyblock mod which basically has you start off on a tiny little island floating in the sky,
Yeah.
and you have to grow out
Yeah,
from
so
there.
Sky Factory is
with
just
limited
like
stuff.
that with a whole bunch of mods added on top
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Wait
Okay.
a minute.
The
Wait a minute.
best.
Is this Waterworld the game?
Basically, yeah.
It seems a little bit like that. Yeah. So, all right, well, we'll be reviewing Raft in the first week of January once we come back from the break. So,
Oh my God, January?
yeah, I know. Holy shit, hey.
January.
But until then, we've got some stuff to look forward to. So we are, at this time of recording, a mere 12 hours away from the Game Awards. So we haven't really spoken about it much tonight because by the time this episode goes up, it will have all happened. But we, of course, have all got our predictions in, including Adrian, who missed last week. Adrian's actually gotten some predictions together as well. So we've all got a bit of a vested interest in how that plays out now. We'll be able to work out how we all went in next week's episode, which will be fun. So Christian, as the Scoremaster, is going to be tracking all that for us.
That's right.
Which is going to be good. And next episode, of course, is the first part of our annual Party Favorites episodes. So, it's basically where we get together and start chatting about some of our highlights of the year in various different categories. So, now we haven't...
You might even say it's our own Game Awards show.
Yeah, bet like that. If you make it 100% entirely subjective and a whole bunch of lols as we go. So... yeah, it's going to be a good time. We have changed up the categories a little bit from what we've done in past years. So should we mention what the categories are now, or should we leave it for next week? What do you think?
We'll leave it for next week.
leave it.
Next week? All right. So,
Ooh, the suspense.
yeah, it'll be a good
big
time. So
surprise.
expect some of the same ones as usual to return, and expect some new ones too. But we're going to be running that over the next 2 episodes, as well as all of the usual fun and frivolity of Party Loaded. So thanks everybody for listening. It's been a great night. You know how to get hold of us because we covered that before with the Party Game of the Month entries. Check out our Facebook, Twitter, also on YouTube at youtube.com/channelendgame, and also on Twitch you'll find us streaming on the odd occasion, such as when I absolutely failed to kill Sean Bean the other night, which was a good time. So that's it. All right, well, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks guys for hopping on tonight, having a good chat. It's been awesome. Start getting your thinking caps on for what your party favorites are going to be next week. You got 7 days to think about.
I have some good points already, and I'm looking forward to it.
Nice.
Is there a worst game in history category?
No, but maybe we can make one just for you.
Let's make a least surprising award from Adrian.
Absolutely. All right, we'll stay on the edge of your seat for that one. But for tonight, that's it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Right.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.